Estates is about to complete the Ilona Rose building on Charing Cross Road, which includes 8 affordable homes for the Soho Housing Association. John James and Barbara Brownlee toured the building while having a lively discussion about living and working in Soho.
This is Mr. Paul Raymond's signature.
Oh, is it?
Look, I wouldn't mind that on a cheque. Look,
Yeah.
see, he signed that piece of glass
Isn't that
when he was
great?
doing the refurbishment of the review bar.
That's
And
amazing.
there's a venue in there, there's offices in there,
Right.
and there's a restaurant on the top.
Okay.
So it's quite a it's quite a mixed-use building.
Yeah, quite nice. I like it.
And this is all
Okay.
flats here. This is a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, we've got some in Denmark Street. I think there's a lot of cities are further down the road than we are pushing those poorer people to the edges. London has done quite a good job. I would say better than Paris. I would say better than Vienna, where you have to go straight out on a tram and it's all there built behind big brick walls, and that's where the social housing is. That has never been true of London. We've done a much better job of keeping a mix, and I just want that mix.
Barbara, I agree. It's just a question of values, right? It's how you can build a quantity of homes for people who need that facility in an area where the land values are so huge.
As I said, I don't fundamentally disagree with your argument that if you're looking at planning permissions and you have a group of big players coming together and they make a serious and considered offer of something with incredible architectural merit on the end of the Jubilee line, if they do that to offset a property development in central London, it is worth considering. It is definitely worth considering.
That was the original St Martin's School of Art.
Yes,
Right.
I know, and it says...
And that was a 1902 institutional building, right?
Yeah.
The campus sold out, and sold it to Mr. Foyle, who had this site.
Yeah.
Mr. Foyle bought that. The provision was that the college stayed there for another 3 years while they built a brand new campus in King's Cross, which is brilliant. Well, there's still a lot of office creation,
Right.
but there's a lot of offices where if you need more space, you basically have to, the advertising agencies left and went up towards Charlotte Street because the buildings
are bigger.
They were in the 80s boom of that. And there's a few people now who post-production is shrinking.
Yeah.
But
It is.
we have a huge development in this building in the basement.
The fact that it's 8 affordable, incredibly beautiful affordable flats in Greek Street makes it irresistible for the organisation. Their sustainability credentials are great, their space standards are great, and there's not that much affordable housing development in this area. And because of where they are, we negotiated with Westminster, who were really open to this, about not overly filling them with children. There actually is one family in there with one child. There's only the one. The rest are all young sharers, and that family, we spent a long time talking to them about the fact that it's on Greek Street. There's a courtyard behind which will have people, eating outside, and it's built over a nightclub. And they said that we're fine. We live here now. It's what we want. The rest of the people in those flats, the other 7, are let to people, as John has said, who work here. So we've got a guy from the pub around the corner. We've got somebody who works at the Opera House. In fact, I think we've got 2 of John's staff in here. Yeah. Admin staff, which is brilliant. They're the people who we need to keep living in the centre.
It was sort of an obviousness, I felt. When you apply for planning of a building that we are now sat in, there are obviously requirements for affordable housing. Normally, as I'm sure your audience will know, the affordable housing is usually negotiated away as a contribution, and try usually to be put elsewhere and as far away as possible. And I thought to myself, we've always thought that we should be able to produce some affordable housing in Soho for people who live and work here. And we had the opportunity to do it, of course attached to a planning application. And of course that attached to a planning application made absolute sense. and to get it on site. Now, as a stakeholder company, as we are, you would think to yourself, well, look, I'm trying to get a planning application for a rather large development. Politically, to offer affordable housing, I know I have to, but I could try and do it on site and do it as best possible where we can. And you thought, this has got to be a sensible idea, so that's what we pursued. And we built the actual affordable house block in what was our old offices. That's where we used to occupy ourselves, and behind a facade retention. And so we could just put brand new building behind a facade retention. From the outside, you would never know that it would change in any way or shape or form. And inside, we've turned into 8 really beautiful, affordable flats, which everybody who is in them, who lives and works in Soho, and more importantly, works in Soho, right? They can't believe just, wow, look who they are to be here. And if I was a young person, I'd think, geez, that's where I want to be too. This is a wonderful, young, social, vibrant place to live. So we did that because, and the other thing I would sort of say is, when people say, well, my criticism easily is, well, you had to do that because you got your planning here. You think, yes, but I didn't have to do it there, and I felt it was right to do it there, and rather than negotiate that away. And I thought it was important. But it was also the fact that if you have a row of buildings and you can use one of them for that purpose, while gaining an advantage to utilise the other 3 back to, I call, fit for use purposes, then that's a good trade, I think. I think it's a very good trade, And what we've got here on the Greek Street elevation, what was 14 Greek Street is going to turn into an art gallery, which actually one of my daughters is going to be in control of. And we've got an art gallery, we've got affordable housing, and then in this beautiful building we've built, we have in the basement here, we negotiated with Warner Brothers, who were going to leave Soho. Warner Brothers were going to redevelop their facilities elsewhere, and we persuaded them to stay in Soho. And how we did that was say, look, we're going to build this building in the basement of which, we will build you an integral sound box, a massive sound stage. But it will be soundproof, and then you can come in and fit it out to your requirement. So we cooperated financially to make sure that Warner Brothers stayed in Soho. And the reason for that would be, of course, to anchor that business in this building. It was a really good initiative. And if they'd left Soho, then their business and everybody who supplies their business would slowly drift away, and the creativity element of Soho would be eroded away. And which we do, which we made a very big effort not to let that happen. The one thing that Soho is its resilience, right? Soho always reinvents itself. It has done since it started in 1660, and it has a wonderful ability to bounce back. The footfall returned. People enjoy the vibrancy of Soho. There is some uniqueness to this, and of course, I only sit here. We're classed as a stakeholder, and a stakeholder, as everybody should know, is you own more than one piece of property, right? But we're generational people, right? We're 3 generations now from Paul Raymond, who was the founder, and we aren't going anywhere. So we were invested into this in a big way, which is why one of my main levers of support is time, and I will give people time to trade out of this. But Soho will bounce back, and it is bounced back. It is bouncing back now. The only thing we miss at the moment in some of the other areas on the fringe of Soho is tourism, but they're returning. You see more and more people returning on the tubes, and the flights are returning. Leicester Square, we have some property in Leicester Square, and that is really a tourist area, and that's been slower to return than Soho. So Soho's always got the ability to bounce, in my view, and I think without any major control, well, any kind of landlord, to be honest, or any kind of noisy parties, shall we call them, right? Soho just be Soho, and you don't want too much authority in Soho.
No.
That's not what Soho people are all about, and you don't want too many rules and regulations. And if you did, people should ignore them. That's what Soho's about. It was built on tolerance and inclusion, and all the immigrants that came here to live, work, and survive and prosper. That's the history of Soho. You know, I mean, I'm a northern person who came here as a economic immigrant.